Welcome back to Healing, Empowering, Accepting, and Living. I'm Julie Piccone, founder of Change by Fire and the Arizona Walk of Courage, and I'm one of your hosts.
And my name is Lori Janik, and I am a 15-year burn advocate, social worker, and current trauma and grief therapist.
And in our last episode, we got to speak with Janice over at Story Ranch, and we really got to learn about the horses and the realm of healing when it comes to horses with equine therapy. And we learned so many different things about what equine therapy is really about and really the impact it can have on burn survivors. In addition to that, Janice shared with us a takeaway tool really related to meditation and the misperception that meditation is just sitting on the ground and, with your eyes closed, crisscrossed. And so, really looking at, going outside, taking a walk, breathing in the fresh air, and just taking that time to really be a human being versus a human doing. We've kind of gotten used to being a human doing. And so this next episode, we're going to really get a new opportunity to talk with another practitioner in regards to another alternative healing modality. And we're very excited about that.
And it kind of plays right in that whole concept of meditation work and kind of moving into getting more in tune with yourself, in touch with yourself. And likely this modality is something that many of our listeners have heard about, yoga. So come join with us as we explore another way to further our own healing, our own connection work. Let's get healing. So, what do you know about yoga or yoga therapy, as someone or as some may phrase it? How would you describe your experience, your interaction with yoga?
Yeah. I've had quite a few experiences with yoga. So I've had it in many different aspects. Really, before some different traumas in my life, I'd go do yoga more from this is healthy. I want to exercise and didn't really feel like exercising. So I was interested, really needed to like calm my mind, calm my
Mhm.
body down, stretch. And then after going through my mom being in a house fire and unfortunately passing away, I started doing a lot of trauma recovery and it incorporated a lot of yoga therapy, holding
Mhm.
postures a little bit longer, feeling into those emotions, which isn't always comfortable. And so I really delved deep into the yoga therapy and I still do yoga now. And so I kind of I'm not an expert by any means. But I utilize yoga. I leave a yoga mat on my floor in my bedroom. My husband does not like it because when he steps on it, I'm like, stop stepping on my yoga mat. And he's like, it's in the middle of the floor. I know. I just never know when I'm going to need to do like a downward dog or a plank, different things of that nature. So I always like to have it there. So what about you? What's been your experience?
I've had a pretty lengthy experience, I think, with utilizing yoga in a variety of ways. Some of my own healing journey, recovering from some different factors of life. I was in and out of a few treatment centers, and I was fortunate enough to participate and really be introduced to yoga in that realm. And so it really was kind of an initial connection with healing work and connecting with, being in your body and being inside. And I have a little bit of friction with that. I have delved through a pretty lengthy eating disorder. And so yoga was very instrumental in kind of getting me really reconnected back with my body. And in working in the fields that I worked with, social work, burn, trauma, again, I was fortunate to both be involved in putting together and participating in groups for individuals in healing through yoga. That's actually ironically how I met Lara, but we'll talk about that in just a little bit. But yoga just is such a powerful way to connect with your whole self, your whole healing, and be both participating in it and witnessing it has been just an amazing, like, I think, element facet of healing that
Mhm.
like I've experienced and walked with people with. And similarly to how we introduce all of our healing modalities and really a lot of what we've broached throughout this podcast is we like to go to definitions first. So definitions of kind of yoga, types of yoga offerings and healing. The word yoga is derived from the Sanskrit word yuj, which means to join, to yoke, to unite.
Mm.
And it's that union of consciousness, individual, universal together, that perfect harmony that can be found between the mind, the body, humans, nature. So, ironically, that we started this episode with nature, we're circling back to nature here. Yoga is a process, it's a way of life. Involves 5 different major principles. So, we're talking about proper exercise, or what's phrased as asanas, breathing, phrased as pranayama, relaxation, diet, nutrition, meditation, positive thinking, all of like really all of these modalities of
sold me.
healing.
You
I
sold
know,
me.
I know. It's like all you need to say is that. And there's so many different types of yoga, which hence why I said many of our listeners maybe have heard of yoga. And there's yoga therapy, therapeutic yoga that support just further integration of health benefits for specific ailments, specific illnesses, specific diagnoses, symptoms. And knowing this knowledge about yoga and yoga therapy, just really it's another platform of connection and healing and support that we can offer those in healing.
Well, and yoga therapy is another potential healing resource that Change by Fire really helps support and provide for burn survivors. And we have an amazing professional in this field and work, as well as a stellar human being. And, really yoga helps support that whole body wellness that, Lori and I continue to talk about each episode that we do for our podcast, Heal. And so today we have an amazing guest, Laura Rosenberg, here with us. And you've known Laura for quite some time.
I have. I've known Laura for quite a bit. I actually think I first met and started working with you around just like burn injuries. I was looking into discovering, and I think you're on mute, Laura, so you might want to unmute yourself when we get to there. But I was working with, I was fortunate enough to start exploring additional resources for burn survivors and healing. And one of the big avenues I wanted to look into to build a resource of supports we could refer people to was yoga therapists. And that's how I kind of connected and found Laura. Ironically, one of the doctors in the burn center, he was going to your studio and so had talked about you. And so that's kind of like that interesting little interconnection. But Laura, what can you tell us about just like what is your memory of kind of reconnecting to and initiating and starting even kind of like working with the burn realm of kind of healing support?
Well, I have actually worked with trauma for a very long time. And so, Lori, when you reached out to me, I had worked with a lot of people in the medical field in helping them deal with what they've seen and what they've experienced in traumatic experiences and same things. And so when you asked me to come work with burn survivors, I was like, well, this is kind of just another realm of something that I do working with trauma. And yes, there's different physical ailments and different experiences that burn survivors have, but it just felt very natural to kind of flow into that and to be with people that had experiences with fire and with burns. And, also honoring that fire is sort of a light in our life, and it starts to spark us as well. And so being able to find almost this duality is that fire is also something that's going to be in our life anyway, and how it's affected us. And so one of the things with yoga that I really appreciate and have delved into is accepting the duality in life and accepting how to, be in comfort and discomfort at the same time, and recognizing that burn survivors really experience a lot of discomfort, and where can they find a place that's comfortable for them, and helping people grow from a place of awareness through that.
Love that. Can you tell us a little bit about your work as a yoga practitioner, maybe some of the offerings that you have at Om3 Yoga, and really some of the healing benefits you've seen with individuals and groups you've helped support in your, history of working as a yoga therapist?
So I'd like to kind of start with the beginning for me. So I actually, one of my first words was yoga or yogi. And my parents thought I was saying Yogi Bear, and didn't know. And I like to reframe this story and saying I was sort of navigating what was going to be happening in my life later.
Oh,
Um, so that's sort of how I think it started. And I had gone through some challenging experiences growing up, and had done a lot of therapy, and over the years. And I'd also found myself in treatment in my late teens and early 20s. And so during that time, I realized that I could be in a yoga room, because yoga was introduced to me at that time, and start to learn to be comfortable with other people and not talk, because I didn't really have my voice, which is very challenging today because so many people say I talk a lot now.
mhm.
Um, but it was a time in my life that I was really struggling. I learned to be in my body and learned to be more comfortable in my body, learning to connect with my breath, and also being aware of the surroundings and starting to allow myself to feel more present. And so for me, that's sort of how the journey started. And I got trained to be a yoga teacher initially in 2000. I actually did not teach for 4 years because I felt like I didn't have a voice yet. And it was just really challenging for me to kind of experience that. And so over time, I ended up living in India for a few years, in Southeast Asia, and studied yoga therapy there. And when I came back to the US, I told people I was a yoga therapist, and they were like, "What's that?" And so I'm so grateful that the awareness of the yoga therapy practice has really begun to grow in the healing world. And there recently was just an article by WebMD on February 6th that came out with how yoga is really more beneficial than we can even imagine. And so it was, it's great to see how this modern day science is catching up with this ancient practice.
Mhm.
And so, yeah.
How awesome was it that you got to go to India and really study and really learn about yoga therapy, and probably a very different culture and way of doing life?
Mhm.
It was, for me, I began to see the humanness of all being and all people, and that, all of us have our struggles, and all of us have things that challenge us, or obstacles, and things that are also very easy for us. And it's learning to navigate, when we've had that moment of fear, and that's why the yoga practice is so great. I always say yoga, that's the most challenging thing, is to being in your body. And then the things on the outside world, they just start to become easier. And, like, oh, I did something challenging in yoga. I can do this now. I can take this next step. I balanced on one leg,
Mhm.
and
That's
starting to navigate that. Yeah.
that's wonderful.
What have you discovered kind of about your own self in this work? Like, how has really embodying and living and teaching and kind of walking in yoga and yoga therapy supported just your own healing, your own wholeness? And how have you applied that then in the work that you do?
I think just being an acceptance that everything is just kind of as it is. And the more we try to control things and have things be a certain way, um, the less it works out. And when we start to let go and start to be in the moment and connect with our breath, or orient ourselves to our surroundings, like looking at where are we actually physically in the body, or in life. Currently I'm in a room that we use as yoga. I love that you have a yoga mat behind me always, as you mentioned that earlier. But, you know, honoring ourselves where we're at. And when I'm feeling anxious, to take a deep breath, and also recognizing that all of the emotions are still going to happen, but how do we navigate those? And, I'll starting to have a different awareness as, are my needs being met right now? Am I hungry right now? Am I tired right now? Am I thirsty? Do I need to move my body? And starting to have a different awareness of what's actually happening and how we need to be in the world. And so, as you mentioned earlier, that there are many types of yoga.
Mhm.
And there's many types of meditation practices as well, which is also kind of entwined into yoga. And it doesn't necessarily mean sitting on your bottom and, and sitting how you mentioned earlier before. You can be doing the dishes and being present with the dish, doing the dishes and holding, a plate or a spoon and feeling the soapy water on your hand and, just really being present with the moment, and that being a meditation.
Mhm.
And, doing our daily activities as a meditative practice, drinking a glass of water in the morning and being like, thank you for hydrating me. And just having this deeper awareness of everything around us that also feeds us, and being more grateful, I think, and more gracious of what is and what we do have.
Sounds like a lot of a greater appreciation and sense of kind of nurturing of yourself in all that you do around you. I love that idea of just that, almost that acceptance, that radical acceptance, and being mindful and being present and being grounded in your own body, your own walks of life, and reading your cues. Reading the different cues. I mean, we're really good about reading those cues and different things that happen around us, but reading these cues. Am I hungry? Am I thirsty? Is something kind of like bottled up in here, what that might be. I love that aspect of kind of yoga, is that whole awareness.
I would agree. Laura, how can yoga really help support individuals that have gone through either a burn injury or trauma in their life?
So there's different practices based off what people need. And so what I always like to do with people, at Om3 Yoga, we hold very small sessions, and many of our sessions are individual. And so, or really small groups. And so that way I can meet the needs of what every person or individual might need. So if somebody needs a chair, that the chair yoga is going to be better for them. Or sometimes it's the yoga practice is moving their body and learning to be comfortable in their body. And then also the aspect of learning to say, no, this is too far for me. My body's not able to do that. And having that appreciation for when to stop. Um, using meditation, there's a beautiful meditation practice developed by Dr. Richard Miller that was used with the Department of Defense uh, for anxiety, sleep disorders, and chronic pain, called iRest, which is integrative restoration. And we use iRest. Myself and one of the other instructors is trained at the studio. And we use iRest a lot with people, because that is mostly people sometimes just need to stop because they are so busy in their lives. Um, and so, working with burn survivors, honoring that there are limitations, there might be limb loss, there might be, different things that are going on with them, working with scar tissue, and just having this acceptance of their body just doing what it can today. It might not have been able to do what it did 10 years ago or when they were a child, but like, okay, this is where I'm at today, and how can I work and navigate through this? And so whether it's through breath work or using the breath as a tool, honoring what's the mind telling you as you're doing something. So sometimes when people say, no, I can't do that, I'm like, who's telling you that? Is it yourself, or is it an old voice that's telling you to do something? Where is that piece coming from? Also learning to be stable in your feet again. I do a lot of work with people just recognizing how to be in your feet, because it's something that we often don't pay attention to, and noticing when our toes curl up when we're feeling tense. And, can we relax and spread the toes and breathe into the feet, and just opening ourselves up.
I love that idea of just really accepting your body as it is now, recognizing like there may have been maybe shifts and changes, and really kind of coming to reconnect, explore, and understand it again. And especially in working with burn survivors, I imagine in a lot of the work that you've done just with those with burns and traumas that you've worked with thus far, you've come across and developed a lot of insights, stories, ideas. Is there anything that come to mind that you feel might be helpful to share?
I think the biggest thing is accepting that there has been an injury and that there is limitations, and honoring where are you at today.
Mm,
And because every day is different, and some days are easier than others, and some days are quite a struggle. And, you know, those days that are maybe a little bit more challenging, or you might be having more pain, also kind of recognizing, well, what do you need in that moment? Kind of what we were talking about earlier is just honoring, what do we need? Um, and being patient with where people are at, because again, every day is different. And, some days there's been a treatment and there might be a wound that is bandaged. And so we're having to navigate with that. Perhaps, one day you feel really good in your body and you're having a lot of energy. And then, I'll see you a couple days later and it's not there. And so again, honoring the processes and the steps and accepting where you're at today in this moment right here, right now. And what are you feeling in your body? And then, okay, what can we stretch to maybe make that feel better? What can we move? And what do you need to hold? What support do you need around you? Do you need blankets? Do you need pillows? Do you need bolsters to help move some of the energy around? Do you need a chair, a wall to support you?
Well, I think a question that many of our listeners may ask is, how does really moving my body and returning to my breath really address some of the real life trauma that they're going through?
I think there are some studies out there that the physiology and the emotions are connected. And so when we can move our body, I know if we shake our body for like 22 seconds, you're going to have a shift in your body. And it's just kind of shaking your hands or shaking your head a little bit, just wiggling in your body. There's going to be a shift within. And recognizing, again, honoring, what are you feeling right now? So if you're feeling sad or if you're feeling pain, saying, okay, I'm feeling pain right now, and honoring that, and that's what you're doing. But if you can move your body or take a deep breath, will that help? Or can you spread your fingers, or you can, you wiggle your toes, or just even move your arms out to the side, just something to start to shift the awareness and shift the attention. Even going for a walk, there's been times where I'm working with burn survivors and other people that have trauma, that going for a walk is what's going to happen that day. And, how walking can be also yoga and also meditation, awareness to, again, what the surroundings are. So I think so often we get into these positions, and especially our lifestyles, or we're hunching over a computer or our phones, we're doing that, and we're putting ourselves in a posture that's not really good and protective for us. And so if we can just open up our body and just move your shoulders back, how much more that's going to feel better. And I know a lot of people complain about back pain, but it's also because we've overextended our muscles in the wrong direction. And how do we move them in a different way so we can feel more open?
I'm guilty of that.
Well,
we all are.
I love how you're talking just so much about like this. I mean, yoga is very somatic, and we tend to live and reside just in our cognitive structures up here. And I mean, like, really a lot of healing work and a lot of life work and becoming more whole, more embodied is working with both realms together. So any type of somatic pieces, I mean, like you mentioned, just like the shaking. I mean, there's a whole realm of therapy that's built around that, the whole TRE, and a lot of yoga work is very like somatic based. There's a whole realm of therapy, somatic experience. And it's interesting. And I love that you broached that yoga is really being purported for what it is and what it can offer now, because there's still so many realms of like cognitive therapy based structures that are included and involved and broached and appreciated, but there's so much we can do with our body that we have yet to really explore and elevate to that level. And the work that you do really just provides that opportunity. So I and many that have participated in yoga are very, very grateful for that. I mean, you promote healing and whole body work in the community, and specifically in trauma healing populations. There is so much whole body, inner and outer work that is really left unaddressed if we're talking about burns and trauma, which is kind of what this podcast is based around. But there's so much of that work that's unaddressed in just the physical healing that is encountered in hospital and clinic and rehab settings. And this is such a valuable tool and method and support that can help close some of those gaps in recovery work. And we just are very fortunate to work with you, speak with you, understand more just about yoga therapy and what it can offer to burn and trauma survivors in this population.
Absolutely. And, we always, on our podcast, we always end our podcast really focusing around some level of support or takeaway tool that really our listeners can go back to and utilize. Our last guest had provided a takeaway tool specifically related to meditation. Is there a takeaway tool, Laura, that you're able to share with us and our listeners that maybe they can utilize in their healing?
Probably my two favorite tools is kind of like we talked about earlier, just take a moment and roll your shoulders back and just notice how that feels. I just see both of you just are smiling and just how the light just kind of started to shine on you just by rolling your shoulders back, and taking that moment and taking 3 deep breaths. If you can just inhale through the nose and feel maybe your belly expand, and then exhale through the mouth, maybe with a little sound. You can do that with your eyes open or closed. Again, take that deep breath in and exhale. Just one more time. And exhale. And just how different that can make you feel. Bring you more present.
It's like when you do those body scan meditations, and I'm sitting here like really, really getting calm. And I'm like, okay, I'm back to it. That was nice. Thank you
Oh,
for sharing that.
thank you so much. And it really just helps emphasize, I feel, any type of take home whenever we end on this take home piece of message, just that getting back in your body, getting back in touch with your body, just that element, that experience, that support of that shift we can get to. And there's so many resources out there that we have not yet explored, and I think that's just a fortunate opportunity we have to be able to do and share with our listeners, people, individuals such as Laura, yoga therapy, all these different alternative therapy realms that some people may not even have heard of. So
Mhm.
this really gives us a chance and an opportunity to really kind of help guide people to people, resources, tools in their healing journey.
Well, and Laura, for our listeners that maybe want to learn a little bit more about you, what you do, how you support individuals that have experienced trauma, do you have a website that you can share with us that they
Mm.
can maybe visit?
Yes, om3yoga.com. And the last little tidbit is people often tell me they can't do yoga because they can't touch their toes. You do not have to touch your toes to do yoga. And guess what? If you bend your knees, you can touch your toes.
Oh,
So,
excellent. Okay.
yeah. So we offer individual and small group sessions. There are 2 trauma-informed specific classes offered at Om3 Yoga a week. We offer iRest on a monthly basis, meditation classes, as well as there's a monthly grief yoga. Because sometimes the individual isn't the only person, the family members also experience grief. And so it's something that we have found very, very useful and helpful in helping to guide people.
That's wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. Do you offer experiences only in person, or do you also offer things virtually for some of our listeners that maybe are outside of Arizona?
Yes, I do offer Zoom sessions if they are, and they're typically done on a one-on-one basis. They last about an hour, um, based on what the need is, and sometimes we go over a little bit.
Awesome. That's wonderful to hear.
Well, and it's great to know both for individuals to direct themselves to, and then it's also good for us to know in terms of at Change by Fire, because this is something we could potentially fund. We could potentially support
Mhm.
individuals in taking this walk and taking this journey. And if there is someone that is of financial need and capacity for those services, you can reach us at our website, www.changebyfire.org. There is a tab. Remind me the name
It's,
of
it's
that.
it's under medical questionnaire, so it'll go through kind of what you're looking for, what types of support you may need. That way, we can really look at your information and partner you with somebody that would be the best fit for you. So I love the fact that you do this also virtually because, like we kind of talk about, our podcast is listened to worldwide. And so, obviously, the power of being able to connect through Zoom is really important. And I know personally, I've done yoga therapy sessions over Zoom, and they're great. You don't have to just be in person to do it and to really gain the benefits. And so, it's amazing that you're able to do it all across the United States and the world.
Yes.
And I think it's just, again, like broaching and meeting people where they are and the capacities, the abilities, like where they're at, what they might need. And again, we would love to work with individuals and connecting them to this and to other therapy, alternative therapy healing supports. That's kind of what Change by Fire is all about. We're a 501c3 nonprofit that really supports burn survivors, family members, those who work with burn survivors, really through the social, the emotional, the mental coordinates that come along with healing, really in connecting and providing alternative healing modalities, connection opportunities, community opportunities to move through trauma and into life forward. And until next time, we really embrace you to take on that HEAL acronym that this podcast is built around. So, H, harness that power of self healing. E, empower and really energize what is possible for you in life. A, allow yourself to explore maybe a new avenue, a new resource, a new tool in healing. And L, learn and live and be you. We'll see you soon.